My culture insists I beat my children. Religion! My religion commands me to dominate my wife. Tradition demands I treat my family that way.
Have you read any of these books?
Me? Well, no.
I know some of you would have seen that and go, "That's ridiculous." And others will think, "What is he talking about?" There might be many different interpretations of what you just saw, which is from the No Excuses campaign against domestic and sexual violence. It's a very common occurrence in communications. We can all look at the same image or listen to the same words, yet come up with totally different interpretations of what we just saw or heard. Let me tell you why it happens and how you can minimize such instances. Of course, we all communicate, but most of us do so without understanding that our communications are an extension of ourselves. We communicate from our own mindset or perspective. You might be the sender of a communication. The receiver then receives it and interprets it from his or her own mindset. Similarly, you might be the receiver of a communication. Then you interpret it according to your own mindset. Why is mindset important? Isn't it just important to be able to communicate in, say, the same language? Actually, there is much, much more to communications than just speaking the same language, and our mindset is of paramount importance. My thesis is that no two human beings are so similar that they send or receive communications in exactly the same way. We are as different in communications as are our fingerprints. It's like we're all wearing a mask that covers our eyes, our mouth, and our ears, but no two masks are the same. These masks are the filters through which we send communications, verbally and non-verbally, and the way we receive and interpret communications. What are these masks? I call them influencers of communications. Together, they make up the reasons why we do not communicate in exactly the same way with each other. There are many influencers that I have identified in my 25 years of working with mass communications. I have a list of over 50 of them. Let's look at the top 25 in alphabetical order. We all have all of these. No one is immune to having these because no one is perfect. So if we all have these, how do they make us unique? It's simple. No one has exactly the same mix of influences as someone else. Our culture and history and traditions are in us. So are many intrinsic factors, our biases and stereotypes and fears and hatreds, and on it goes. Let's say I have a mild bias against women. Let's call it a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. I might not even realize I have it, but everything a woman says to me, or I say to a woman, will be slightly affected by it. On the other hand, someone else might have an extremely strong bias against women. He might be an 8 on that scale of 1 to 10. He too will be affected in his communications with a woman, but in a much more dramatic way. In fact, his bias against women might be so strong that the influencer becomes a total barrier to effective communications. Now you add in all the other influences I outlined. Each of us has them to some extent, but the extent to which we have them might be different. So if there are over 50 influences I've identified, and each of them has different importance in our character using that 1 to 10 scale, which is probably an oversimplification, then no two human beings are the same because the possible combination runs into billions. Who we are changes the way we send, receive, and interpret communications. We are all individuals.